My name is my name is Manda. I'll be the chair for this round. He, him pronouns, but feel free to address me as judges or panel. I'd like to also let the other judges to introduce yourself according to the tap order.
Hi guys, Sam, good luck.
Hello everyone, Desmond, all the best.
Great. Just a couple of reminder before we start the final. First and primary, don't forget to keep timing your own self. I will help timing you as well in the chat, but just in case I forget to do so, so it will be better if you have your own timer. Number two, also mention your POI preference or even your gender pronouns if you have any before you start the speech. I think there are a lot of the observer here, so make sure that you mute yourself, or if you indicate yourself as an observer, it would be better if you also add your name after that, so it could be identifiable for the ORCOM or even for the better as well, just to make sure for the safety of them. All right, with that said, I'd like to invite first propositions to open a bit for this round. Here.
Hello, am I audible and visible?
Yes, loud and clear.
All right. My pronouns are he, him. I would like my POIs verbally. I will not be responding to any POIs in chat. I'll get my timer ready and I will start shortly. Okay. I will be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Judges, let's be clear. In a world where millions go hungry while some live in unimaginable luxury, wealth is not just a personal matter. It carries responsibility. Once individuals have met their basic needs, surplus resources are not required for survival. They are tools that can prevent suffering, tools that can save lives and improve society. This House believes that ignoring this responsibility is ethically wrong. Good evening, my name is Daniel. As the first speaker of proposition, I will be setting up my team's case, introducing several rebuttals, as well as introducing the first argument of my team. So let's get started with setup. Firstly, what does meeting basic needs actually look like? It means having food, having a house, having access to education and healthcare. It also means having enough money to live comfortably and to sustain yourself as well as your family. Secondly, what is moral obligation? Moral obligation simply means that you are morally compelled to do something. It is not the same as a requirement. Thirdly, donations. What do these donations actually look like? It looks like giving the poor enough wealth to meet their basic survival needs. Please note that we do not see cash handouts as the only solution. Obviously, we are going to encourage as well as educate the poor to find work as well as break the poverty cycle. So in status quo, individuals hoard as much wealth as they can for themselves to benefit themselves only. This leaves poorer individuals struggling to survive, left on the sidelines and ignored. Therefore, my team's stance is that the individuals that have already met their basic needs have a moral responsibility to donate to the poor. The two main stakeholders in today's debate are firstly the donators. These are people who have met their basic needs and they can spare extra wealth to aid the suffering. Secondly, poor people. These refer to the absolute poorest in society. They are the literal bottom of the totem pole and they would greatly benefit from wealth donations. Next, my team's burden is today to show you that there is a moral obligation on individuals to help others once their basic needs are met. And secondly, that acting on this obligation will have significant positive consequences for society. Now, the opposition team needs to show you that to hoard wealth and resources for individuals would be better for society. So let's move on to the rebuttals. It is likely that the opposition may say that well-off individuals are not responsible for the poor situation and therefore have no reason to aid them. You see, well-off people, they have made their money through the efforts of the poor people. Who builds the buildings? Who works in the factories? The poor people. The labor of the poor are the foundation of the rich. Therefore, the rich people do have a moral obligation to aid them. And ultimately, we are giving them a choice. They can choose to be selfish and refuse help. Next, moving on to my first argument about how moral obligation exists. I have two layers of analysis for this claim. Firstly, is because of surplus as a moral trigger. You see, once your basic needs are met and you're able to achieve a comfortable life, all other wealth is simply surplus and unnecessary. Instead of simply just hoarding all this wealth for extra generations to squander it, we can instead convert it into resources that can literally save lives. Next, the drowning child analogy by Peter Singer. The analogy is basically about how if a child is drowning in front of you and you can save them at a little cost, for example, ruining your shoes, it is morally wrong not to act and to let the child die. This situation is no different from the situation that we are in regarding poverty. Our basic needs for a comfortable life have been met. So why should we hoard and save and leave the poor in suffering if we can donate and save lives at a minimal cost to ourselves? For example, in Malaysia, individuals donate a portion of their wealth, typically 1 to 5%, to bank wakaf, which then distributes funds to the poor. These donations are supporting education, they support healthcare, they support housing, they help small businesses for low-income communities. This shows us that moral responsibility is not only practical, it's also effective. And the system proves that individuals giving just a small fraction or even of their wealth can already alleviate poverty. And this shows us that after meeting basic needs, donating is both ethical as well as impactful. Next, impacts. Mainly regarding the poor people. By giving our wealth to them, we can firstly save their lives. People in extreme poverty often die from hunger, malaria, and untreated diseases. Once they have this wealth, these donations can allow them to buy food, they get access to clean water, they get access to medical care. Once they don't have to worry about putting food on the table, they can use their donations to gain access to education and therefore exit the poverty cycle. So let's end this off with a quick comparative. In the opposition world, morality is hollow, people live in comfort while ignoring preventable deaths. Hypocrisy and selective compassion are normalized. But in our world, surplus wealth is used as moral obligation to save lives and prove that human dignity matters more than trivial luxuries. And that's why I am extremely proud to propose. Thank you.
I thank the first prop for the fine speech. Not like to invite first opposition.
Okay, am I audible?
Yep.
I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. So I strongly oppose this motion. I think moral decisions should never be a responsibility, and that is why I strongly oppose this motion. So I'm going to move on to the framing first. This debate is not about whether helping the poor is good, but I believe that, yeah, it is obviously is. The real question is whether morality can be enforced as a responsibility or not. The moment we claim that individuals are morally bound to donate their wealth, we strip away their freedom of choice that makes generosity meaningful. On our side, charity remains voluntary, preserving both individual liberty and authentic compassion. On their side, morality becomes an obligation, which undermines personal freedom and turns virtue into coercion. So, next, I'm going to move on to the refutation. The government may argue that people have a moral responsibility to donate their wealth after meeting their basic needs, but morality cannot be dictated as an obligation. Rights are personal, and information is meaningless if individuals are forced to act according to someone else's standard of justice. Wealth is earned through effort and innovation, and claiming that it carries a responsibility to others ignores the role of individual choice. True morality comes from voluntary action, not enforced obligation. And they also stated that it will have positive consequences for society. I believe that in the short term, there will be a positive consequence for the society. However, moral obligation does not work because I believe that in the government's world, there will be a pressure from your surroundings to donate money to poor ones. As I'm going to explain this more in my argument, I believe that feeling to help people should come from your heart, not from pressure and obligation. That never works, since there may be backlashes and etc. So, no, thank you. Our central argument today is about freedom and authentic morality. Poverty is a very tragic reality, but forcing wealthy individuals to give after meeting their needs undermines the voluntary nature of generosity. Morality that is coerced is no longer moral, but it becomes some kind of a duty, a rule imposed externally rather than an act of conscience. People give because they care, not because they are told to. If we define morality as a first responsibility, we erode personal autonomy, which is the foundation of ethical decision making. How does this opposition work? By protecting freedom of choice, we ensure that charity remains meaningful and sustainable. People will give when they truly want to, rather than out of guilt or obligation.
Miss
This
POI.
preserves dignity for both donors and recipients. Donors are respected for their autonomy, and recipients receive genuine support rather than obligatory handouts. So the impact here is that the result is stronger and more resilient societies. When charity is voluntary, it inspires innovation, community involvement, and sustainable solutions. Forcing donations may generate resources in the short term, but it risks resentment, performative giving, and even backlash. Preserving choice respects human dignity and encourages long-term social cooperation. But before I'm going to move on to the wing, I'll take that POI.
Yeah. Okay. So you're saying so you're saying that we should let people so you're letting people die because you think that it's not a responsibility? Please, I don't understand. Please.
I think like what you're saying is maybe right, but we answered that well, for example, walking past a drowning child is immediate harm, right? I think that donating wealth is a choice among many valid ways to live one's life, and it is not a direct harm. Enforcing obligation transforms ethics into guilt-driven compliance rather than those true moral actions. So more responsibility cannot be imposed; it must be chosen, and I think that is why your POI doesn't really kind of stand. So next onto our waving. Why is our side stronger? Because the government's approach sacrifices freedom and authenticity for the sake of imposed fairness. A society where morality is mandated is a society where ethical action is hollow, and our side promotes genuine compassion, personal responsibility, and also sustainable giving. The government's model, by contrast, creates compliance, not virtue, and risks moralizing poverty rather than solving them. True ethical impact comes from willing action, not moral coercion. So, in conclusion, after meeting their basic needs, individuals do not have a moral responsibility to donate their wealth. Freedom, choice, and authentic morality must come first. So since I don't have time, I'm gonna end my speech. Thank you.
I think to the first supposition for the fine speech, not liked in 5-second prompt.
Okay, I'd like to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Just every extra dollar someone keeps while millions go hungry is not neutral. It's a choice to let suffering continue. Wealth beyond survival isn't luxury. It's a weapon we can use to save lives. And ignoring it is immoral. In my speech today as the second speaker, I will extend the case set up by my Prime Minister, rebut the opposition, provide additional arguments, and give comparatives. The government whip will later strengthen our case and prove why we should win. Before we begin, I'd like to remind the judges that our burden is to prove that there is a moral obligation on individuals to help others once their basic needs are met, and that acting on this obligation has significant positive consequences for society. Now, let's engage with the opposition. They are claiming that individuals are morally bound to give money fundamentally misrepresents our case. My Minister explicitly clarified that a moral obligation is not the same as a requirement or a legal mandate. We are not forcing anyone to donate. We are highlighting an ethical duty that should guide one's actions. Suggesting that we are forcing people to give is a straw man, and the opposition's repeated focus on this imaginary compulsion shows either a failure to listen or an attempt to distract the House from the real issue: the moral responsibility to help others once basic needs are met. The opposition also leans heavily on the idea of freedom, claiming that acting on moral responsibility would violate personal autonomy. This is fundamentally flawed. Freedom does not mean freedom from ethics. Acting morally after meeting basic needs does not take away liberty. It asks individuals to recognize that their surplus wealth affects others. Failing to act when one can prevent suffering is an ethical failure, not freedom. True autonomy is making morally informed choices. But behind freedom, the opposition ignores the real suffering caused by inaction and the societal benefits of donating surplus wealth. Now, moving on to my first argument, which is that wealth redistribution saves life. Global poverty is not inevitable. It can be solved if surplus wealth is used for human benefit. Oxfam reports that the richest 1% hold more wealth than the bottom 50% combined, and less than 1% of global wealth could eradicate extreme poverty. From a moral standpoint, if one can prevent suffering without sacrificing anything of comparable value, one is ethically obliged to do so. Wealth beyond basic needs is precisely such a resource. It can prevent immense suffering at minimal personal cost. The impact of acting on this responsibility is profound. Donations provide food, shelter, healthcare, and education, turning moral duty into life-saving action. Those in extreme poverty can gain survival and development opportunities, while donors gain moral fulfillment and social recognition. Second argument is that fulfilling this moral duty produces far-reaching societal benefits. Poverty is strongly linked to crime, instability, and disease, all of which undermine social cohesion and economic growth. By donating surplus wealth, individuals contribute to better education, improved healthcare, and stronger infrastructure, creating safer and more prosperous societies. Wealth redistribution fulfills this duty, ensuring that moral action translates into social good. In our status quo community see reduced crime, better health, and higher education, while businesses and donors benefit from more stable, productive societies. When we compare the two sides, it's obvious the government wins because the opposition turns a blind eye to the deadly cost of doing nothing. Moral responsibility isn't abstract. It saves lives and builds stronger societies. Ask yourself this: if someone has more than enough to live comfortably and could prevent suffering with their surplus, is it ever justifiable to do nothing? I'll let the opposition ponder that question, but we all know that the answer to that question is a resounding no. In conclusion, wealth beyond basic needs is not merely a personal asset, it is a moral resource. Acting on this responsibility saves lives, strengthens societies, and benefits both donors and recipients. The opposition fails to show why ignoring this moral duty is acceptable. For all these reasons, I am proud to oppose.
Thank you, second proposition, for the fine speech. Next to second all.
Hello, can you see me and hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so my speech in 3, 2, 1. This house believes that after meeting their basic needs, individuals do not have a moral responsibility to donate their wealth towards poverty alleviation, simply because it should not be deemed as a quote unquote responsibility, and it should be done as something the person actively wants to do, from their opinion or their preference. Our main point is about on mental burden and how hard-earned money shouldn't go to someone else. So first, why are people going to be deemed as quote unquote selfish if they don't donate on their side? We believe we'd like to explain on this first. We believe this is quite clear. 2 reasons for this. First, because it's deemed as a moral responsibility. Although they stated that this isn't a requirement, it basically is kind of similar to a requirement. It's a societal responsibility. They do not act and donate to the poor. This means that they did not fulfill their responsibility. The actions they would deem them as responsible and kind. They did not do something that would deem them as kind. They would deem them as responsible, considering their societal status in society. Not doing such an action would lead to they being deemed as not quote unquote responsible simply because they didn't fulfill that moral responsibility to donate to the poor. Second, because this responsibility is likely a norm on their side, it's considered as a
Your
responsibility
Highness.
around them, like we believe in the norm or the responsibility. No, thank you. Sorry. This means that their surroundings are likely going to react if they do not or do a specific action that is seen as responsibility from their surroundings. People have this biological and natural human reaction of wanting to blend in with the flow and way of thinking of the majority, leading to this 1 versus 200 battle of the majority going against the vulnerable minority who chose not to donate simply because they had this preference of not wanting to donate, or simply because they had this opinion that, hey, I don't want to donate. And this simply just leads to they being discriminated and thought of as a quote unquote unresponsible person from society. So why is this so harmful? This debate isn't about ethicality, whether this is moral or whatnot, but whether the effect of deeming this as immoral are going to be significant. So considering that these people are the people who chose based on their opinion or based on their freedom of choice, that they do not want to donate to the poor or those who have problems with their survival and physiological needs, we believe that then they are going to become this vulnerable minority who is going to be discriminated, or at least thought of to some extent as someone who is not generous by from society and from the general public. This is because this is deemed as a moral responsibility, and because society kind of has this biological, natural human reaction of wanting to blend in and copy and imitate what the majority thinks, or the way the majority goes against with a specific topic or point. Therefore, deeming this as a moral responsibility deems this as the person or the people who do not want to donate these poor people, or who chose not to donate to create poverty alleviation, would be eliminated and would be deemed as someone who is not responsible and quote unquote bad. Second, hard-earned money shouldn't go to someone else. Although people do have moral responsibilities in their daily lives, donating money to the poor should not be judged as a moral responsibility. For instance, if there are 2 children, A and B, and they had a fight, let's say that A punched B in the face. In this case, A has a moral responsibility to apologize to B because B deserves this, and because A did something very detrimental towards B. However, for donations, if people are forced to have the responsibility of donating, this means that they're giving away their hard-earned money, the money they deserve, and the money they earned through their actions and their actions only. It's not something like they earn this money through punching the poor or killing them. The example they display of a person saving a crying boy is, well, kind of inaccurate, since they didn't have any quote-unquote responsibility or whatnot to save that boy and help them be happy. Of course, they could do that if they wanted to, but obviously it's not like they are the ones who harmed the boy, who made the boy cry, or hurt them, and they don't really deserve to try to like help them or cry for them or like have this moral for this boy, because they're not the one or the cause of the boy crying or the boy feeling bad. This is why you probably oppose. Yeah, thank you.
I think to the second opposition for the fine speech. Next, third prop.
Okay, sorry. Just give me 1 second to prep my gatekeeper, and I'll be starting. Yep. Wait. Am I audible?
Yep.
Am I audible? Okay, good. Wait, so sorry, my internet is like killing me today. Okay, so I'll be starting in 3, 2, 1. Judges, let's cut the nonsense. Millions of people live in extreme poverty while some hoard wealth far beyond their needs. Surplus money is not just personal, it comes with moral responsibility. Once basic needs are met, the question isn't, can you give? It should you stand by while others die? This house says no. And let's get real, the opposition admitted people should just die. When we asked them in the POI whether letting people die is not a responsibility to prevent, they cowered and refused to answer. That silence tells you everything. They cannot defend the indefensible. Now, I would like to rebuild our team's case. First, moral obligation exists. Once an individual basic need, food, shelter, healthcare, and education are met, surplus wealth is not necessary for survival, only luxury. Ethics demand action. Peter Singer's drowning child analogy proves that if you can prevent suffering at little cost, failing to act is morally wrong, as said by our first speaker earlier. Choosing not to donate surplus wealth is actively for allowing preventable suffering and death. This is not neutrality. This is moral failure. Secondly, we have also shown you that wealth redistribution saves lives. Global poverty is solvable. Less than 1% of global wealth could lift everyone out of extreme poverty. Such as our first speaker said, Malaysia's bank wakaf proves this locally, donating 5% of wealth funds education, healthcare, and food security. These donations are practical, measurable, and life-saving. Surplus wealth, when distributed, does not improve society. It prevents death. Okay, now I'd like to give my rebuttals towards leader of opposition. She said that morality can never be responsibility. This is cowardice dressed as philosophy. They literally said people should just die. That is not morality, that is moral negligence. Once basic needs are met, refusing to donate allows preventable deaths to happen. That is not neutrality. It is irresponsible and unethical. Morality does create responsibility. If you can prevent harm at almost no cost to yourself, doing nothing is immoral. And we have also shown you that. And now moving on to Deputy Leader of Opposition. She said that wealth is personal choice. This is a disgusting excuse for letting people die while you enjoy comfort. Comfort does not justify indifference. Surplus wealth is luxury, not survival. And we have also said that choosing to keep it while others suffer is ethically indefensible. Furthermore, the opposition misframed our argument, claiming that we said it's selfish to not donate. We never said that. That's a straw man. They attack the straw man because they cannot face the real argument. Wealth comes with duty once basic needs are met. Now, our second argument. Now, they said that government should handle poverty. Passing the buck is convenient, but it kills people waiting for bureaucrats to act. Governments cannot fill all the gaps. Individuals can act faster, directly, and more effectively. Voluntary action complements government systems and saves lives immediately, unlike endless red tape. Now, I'd like to analyze the whole debate. This debate is morality versus empathy. The opposition wants to normalize hoarding, excuse their indifference, misrepresentation of arguments, and even glorifying letting people die. We fight for more responsibility, real action, and measurable impact. In their world, wealth is self-serving. In ours, wealth is a tool to prevent suffering, save lives, and build a better society. So at the end of the day, ignoring poverty while having surplus wealth is not neutral. It's immoral and a preventable harm. Every dollar donated saves lives. May I remind you, Mr. Speaker, funds education and restores dignity as a whole. Ethics demand action once basic needs are met. This house says yes to moral responsibility, yes to wealth redistribution, and yes to a world where surplus wealth reduces suffering instead of amplifying inequality. With that, I'm no prouder to propose.
Thank you, third proposition, for the fine speech. Next, I'd like to invite third proposition.
Am I audible and visible?
Yep.
Okay, then I would like to take verbal POIs, and I would like to tell you when to do the POI. So, if the judge and the government side is ready, I'll start my speech in count of 3, 2, and 1. Imagine working hard every day, saving money for your children's education or for your parents' healthcare, etc. You have already paid your taxes, you support your family, and you made your basic needs. Now, someone tells you that you still have moral duty to give away your remaining money. We believe that this is really wrong. We believe that this is wrong. Charity can be good. However, it should always be a choice, not a forced responsibility. Poverty is a problem of a government and system, not of individuals' wealth. So we are so proud to oppose. So in my speech, I'm gonna do two things. First, I'm gonna explain about the clash point. Second, I'm gonna explain why we have one. So first, the clash points. So we think that today's clash point is about freedom versus responsibility versus freedom. So before moving on that, I would like to explain from the points that the government side has said and the opposition side. So first, from the freedom, the government side says that individuals have the responsibility to give, but we say that this takes away personal freedom. Imagine someone who works long hours every day, pays their taxes, support their families. After all this, do we really want to say you are still obligated to give more? People
POI.
must have, no thank you. People must have a freedom to decide how to use their own extra money. Someone may want to save their children's education, someone their parents' healthcare, someone start a business. This is also moral and vulnerable goals. Charity is good, but it only has real value when it is voluntarily. It is a force as a responsibility, it loses its meaning. Second, about the fairness. The government also says that rich people benefit from society, so they must give back. But this is not fair. People already contribute through taxes, though work and through supporting their communities. It is not fair to say their hard-earned money should automatically go to someone else just because they are richer. Success often comes from sacrifice, late nights, and years of effort. To take that achievement and say you now have a duty to give away your reward ignores the effort behind it. Helping the poor is important, but solving poverty is the role of the government and the system, not an individual's fault. So
POI,
the main
miss.
clash, sorry, no thank you. So the main clash in this debate is responsibility versus freedom. The other side says the dominating is a responsibility. The nation is a responsibility. We say freedom must come first, as as our leader of opposition had mainly explained to you. The second clash is about fairness. They say fairness means give back. We say fairness means reacting people's effort and allowing them to keep what they earned, as our second speaker had mainly explained. Therefore, while donation can be good and generous act, it is never a moral responsibility. It should remain a freedom choice, and that is why we strongly oppose today's motion. Thank you.
I thank to the third proposition for the fine speech. I'd like to invite up reply.
Okay. I'm going to start my reply speech in the count of 3, 2, and 1. In the status quo, UNICEF and many groups cooperate to tackle poverty, and poor people have decreased because of this globalization. And I think on our side, we argue that we do not need that moral obligation for those wealthy people to donate for the poverty. So now I'm going to explain why we won the clash for this debate. So I saw like mainly one clash for this debate. So the first the clash was about like morality and ethics probably. Their side argued that like our side is making millions of people get killed. However, on our side we do not ban donating. There are many charities that still donate to people, so we do not actually like let people like get killed. In addition, they ignored our point about black backlashes and resentments from those wealthy people. So what have we proved to you? We said that it is not ethical to pressure people to donate money and that it does not work. We believe that we do not call quote unquote that people donate when they are pressured by their surrounding and then donates. Think about the time frame. In the short term, millions of people might get saved in the government side. That's great. However, in the long term, I think that there will be backlashes for government from people who are kind of pressured by their surroundings to donate. So that's why I think like yeah, we have won that clash, and I would like to end my reply speech. Thank you.
Thank you, opposition reply, for the fine remarks. Next to prop reply.
Hi. Hello. Am I visible and audible?
Yep.
All right. Thank you. I will just set up my timer and I will get started quickly. Apologies in advance if I end up coughing. I'm kind of sick right now. Okay. I will begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Good evening. As the reply speaker of the proposition team, I will be proving to you why my team should win this debate by weighing out the main themes of this debate and showing you why our side has a better case overall. So before I get to the main clashes, I would like to point out several things. Firstly, the opposition has been constantly talking about the loss of freedom of choice because of a so-called moral obligation that somehow forces people to donate. Please remember that a moral obligation is not the same thing as a legal requirement for donation. Therefore, your freedom of choice is not lost. So the first clash of today's debate goes down to the meaning of mortality. Okay, we believe that donation out of moral responsibility is morality because morality is about doing what's right when you are able. Whereas our opponents believe that moral obligation causes generosity and true morality to not be genuine anymore. In fact, I don't even need to weigh it out. Let's just break it down here. So the opposition claim is false. Morality is about doing what's right when you have the ability to do so. Real morality is about sacrifice, not convenience. Okay, donate, not simply donating just because you can. By saying morality is only genuine when it's voluntary, reduces morality to personal preference or something that's nice to have. That is not true mortality. When we recognize giving as a duty, people sacrifice real luxuries to save lives. That is what shows deep moral commitment. Second clash of the debate and the main clash today is about aid versus freedom. We believe that by donating to poor individuals, we can support them, we can aid them. Whereas our opponents believe that this moral obligation to donate to people is a so-called loss of a freedom of choice. For the sake of being able to weigh out these themes, let's just assume that their claim is true, although I've already disproved it earlier. So let's break this by weighing it out on two different fronts. That should be enough. Firstly, magnitude. Our claim is far more impactful because we are able to aid the poorest of society. We give them a lifeline. In fact, donations. It looks like food on the table, money for healthcare, medicine, education. We give them a chance to exit the poverty cycle. Whereas on their side, they can maintain freedom of choice for the rich, for the well-off people in society, and they ignore the deepest, the most pitiful individuals that are suffering. You leave them on the edge, you leave them stuck in poverty, you let them die. Obviously, we win. Next, lastly, scale. It basically comes back down to the same thing. We are giving these poor individuals a chance. We give them stability, we give them hope, we give them a lifeline, we give them a chance at survival. Whereas our opponents ultimately leave them to rot and suffer. Today's debate is basically just like this. Opposition is about leaving the poor stuck in poverty and suffering. But on our side of the house, we donate to save their lives. And that's why I've never been prouder to propose. Thank you.
I think to the prop reply for the fine remark as well. That's end up the debate for the grand final round. Congratulations everyone for finishing the debate. Yep, I think that's it. The judges will use the time for the deliberation, so all of you can just wait here for the next announcement from the ORCOM. Thank you all. For the judges, can we just move to room 5 for the deliberation?
Thank you, Judge.